Okay, now that we've got the hardware installed and our electronics completed, the last thing we want to do is just perform a final setup of the guitar. And that's just to assure that the guitar is going to play to its very best. And this normally involves 4 stages. So first we'll look at neck relief, which essentially refers to how much relief or inward bow the neck has. Now, generally you don't want a dead straight neck. If you do, as you can see, the strings vibrate quite a bit. They would be hitting the frets towards the center of the neck. So what you want to do is introduce a small amount of relief to give clearance for that vibration. As you can see, toward the middle of a neck is where the string moves the most. Okay, the other thing we want to check is action, string action, which is essentially the clearance height from the fretboard to the strings. That also assists with reducing fret buzz. After that, we'll look at intonation, which essentially is how in tune the guitar is with itself. So if we hit an E, we want to also make sure we're hitting an E at the 12th fret, an octave higher. And the last thing we'll do is just check our pickup height. Okay, so the very first thing we do whenever we're performing final setup is make sure the guitar's in tune. We need to have the correct amount of tension on the strings and on the neck. I've already tuned this a couple of times, but I would suggest stretching the strings out as well and then retuning. Find there's a little bit of play in most new strings. You need to get that initial stretch out. Okay, so as I said before, neck relief is essentially the amount of inward bow we have. So if you have outward bow, for example, you're going to have your strings buzzing against the fret wire. So we're aiming for just a small amount of inward bow or relief. And the way to check that, there's 2 ways to do it. You can take a steel rule, and provided your frets are even, you can run along the top of the frets, get down to eye level, and you're just looking for a couple of mil clearance above the 12th fret wire, which this is actually pretty good. And if you don't have a steel rule, just hold down the string, the low E at the 12th fret, at the last fret, and just tap down at the 12th fret. And there should be a little bit of play there. As in, if it's sitting flat, you probably don't have enough relief in the neck. If it's sitting too high, you've probably got too much. So this is about perfect. There's just enough to tap down, but it's not sitting hard against it. Now, if you did need to make adjustments to the truss rod, you would take the Allen key that's included in your packaging, and you would insert that in the end of the truss rod, which is the hole in the headstock here. Now, you work incrementally generally, so work in quarter turns, retune the guitar, and then check the amount of neck relief. Now, if you want to tighten the truss rod, which would be to remove some of the relief, you would turn it clockwise. If you want to introduce more neck relief by loosening the truss rod or loosening the tension on the neck, you turn it counterclockwise. But again, I would work in quarter turns at a maximum and check your work, and always be retuning the guitar. Okay, so moving right along, we'll get on to the action, and that's essentially the height of the strings above, or the clearance for the strings above the fretboard. Now, this is usually subjective, but if you're unsure, a good starting point is about 2.4 mils on the low E string and about 1.6 mil clearance on the high E. But the way this is measured is actually on top of the fret wire. So generally take a steel rule like so, hold it on the fret wire, get down to eye height, and just check the clearance. So this is just a shade over 2.5 on the low E side, and just a shade over 1.6 as well on the high E side. So what I would be doing in this instance is just slightly reducing the height of our posts, our bridge posts on our Tune-O-Matic bridge. Now I'd be turning that clockwise to reduce the height. Again, I would only be turning at a maximum about half turn and then checking again. And that looks about right to me. And we're very close on the high E side as well. Obviously you'd fine tune that a little bit more after you've played it, just to make sure you're happy. And again, I would also just tune the guitar again. It's important that you continue to retune the guitar. Any adjustments to the bridge or the truss rod will affect your tuning, obviously. Okay, so next we want to check intonation, and that is, as I said before, essentially how in tune the guitar is with itself. So as we know, a low E string should be tuned to E, and if we hit down on fret the 12th fret, this should also be E. So as you can see, we're just a little bit sharp on that. And just make sure you're attacking that string with the same amount of attack as you're doing when you hit the open string as well. And you can see we're just a little bit sharp there. So So as you can see, our bridge is on a slant, and that's to allow slightly extra length for the thicker strings, just because they have additional mass and they need to be a little bit longer to compensate for that. Now, you can make small adjustments here as well on the individual saddles that you'll see on the bridge here through these intonation adjustment screws. So if our note is a little bit sharp, which it is in this case, what we want to do is lengthen the length of string that's able to vibrate just by adjusting that saddle slightly. Now, this is what you do across all strings. I'll just demonstrate this on this string first. So as you can see, I'm just moving that saddle back further, and what that does, it just slightly increases the point of contact between the two strings, or the 2 points of contact between the string. So as you can see, that's further along. I'll just tune that string again. Now fret at the 12th fret. So that transient is throwing its head a little bit there, but I'm noticing when the string settles, we're pretty close. I may just lengthen that just a little bit further. So as you can see, we're pretty close there. I probably still would want to increase that, but in this instance, the individual saddle is right to the back of the bridge. So what we may need to do then is look at reducing the amount of relief on the neck just a little bit more again. Okay, now the last thing I would check is the pickup height. And this again is subjective, but if you need a place to start, what I would aim for is about 2.4 mil clearance above the individual pole pieces to the underside of the string. Now, we don't measure that just straight up. We fret at the last fret and measure that height. And as we can see, we're miles under that. So just adjust the height of these just by turning the two screws. I'm going to turn them evenly. As you saw when we installed the pickup, the screw is located within a spring. So as soon as we reduce that tension, the pickups will pop up quite high. So just want to make sure they're fairly even. And we're still considerably higher than we want to be. You might notice sometimes I'm tightening as well as loosening. I'm just trying to get the pickup level. And that's pretty close to what we're looking for. So as I said, aim for about 2.4 mil. But once you've got the guitar plugged in, just test it out. You may find you want to reduce the height or increase it depending on your taste. Okay, so that's pretty much how we perform a final setup. From here, I'm going to plug the guitar in and just check for fret buzz and just give the guitar a final once over. Okay, now I'm left-handed, so unfortunately it's going to be difficult for me to do a full demonstration of this guitar, but we will test the pickups in each position and have a quick inspection of the neck. So what I would do first is just put the guitar in middle position where both pickups are on, open up the volume and tone, and just take your hands away from the guitar. Now if you're hearing any noise, fuzz or electrical interference, it's probably a 60 cycle hum, which is from lights and electrical appliances you'll normally find around the house. If that is the case, you may want to take the back off the guitar again, open up the electronics cavity and just check your ground circuit is correct. You may have a loose wire, there may be some strands of wire causing that problem. Now, next thing I'll do is pop the guitar in each position and just check the volume's working, the tone's working. Now this is going to be in good shape. And the very last thing I would do is just check the neck itself. So up and down the neck on each string at each fret. And just listen for any fret buzz or anything that's going to impede your playing. And if you do notice any problems like that, you need to put the guitar back up on the bench and either adjust your action or introduce some more neck relief to the guitar. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the process. Hopefully you've enjoyed following along and have a completed STH guitar kit in your hands like me. Thanks for watching.